You're in line at the grocery store. Minding your own business. Scrolling through your phone, maybe mentally calculating if you can afford the impulse chocolate bar you just grabbed. And then it happens. The person in front of you shifts their cart, and suddenly you're making eye contact with a baby. A complete stranger's baby. Just staring at you with those massive, unblinking eyes that seem way too big for its head. And your brain does something completely involuntary. Something you didn't ask for and can't fully control. You feel weird. Not bad weird. Not good weird. Just weird. This confusing mix of, "Ah, that's cute," and "please stop looking at me," and "should I smile," and "why do I feel like I'm being judged by something that can't even control its own neck?" Maybe you do that awkward half-smile thing. Maybe you look away quickly. Maybe you do the baby wave even though you're a grown adult and you have no idea why your hand just did that. Here's what makes this so strange: babies are universally considered adorable. We're supposed to think they're cute. That's biology. That's evolution. That's the entire reason the species survives. But when it's a stranger's baby? When it's not your baby, not your family's baby, just some random tiny human in a shopping cart staring into your soul. That cuteness comes with this uncomfortable layer of social confusion that nobody really talks about. Why? What is it about other people's babies that triggers this specific brand of weird? Why does something designed by evolution to be universally appealing make us feel so awkward? The answer involves evolutionary biology, social psychology, something called cute aggression, and the fact that human babies might be the most manipulative creatures on the planet. Let's break it down. Start with the biology, because your brain is being hacked and you don't even know it. Human babies are objectively designed to be cute. Not designed, in the intentional sense, but shaped by millions of years of evolution to trigger specific responses in adult brains. Scientists call it the baby schema, or kinschema, a term coined by ethologist Konrad Lorenz in 1943. He identified the specific features that make babies universally appealing across cultures: large eyes relative to face size, round face, high forehead, small nose and mouth, chubby cheeks, and soft skin. These features aren't random. They're survival mechanisms. Human babies are born completely helpless. Unlike most other mammals, we can't walk, can't feed ourselves, can't regulate our own body temperature effectively. A human baby left alone for even a few hours will die. We're born about a year too early compared to other primates, and that's because of our giant brains. If we stayed in the womb long enough to be as developed as other animals at birth, our heads would be too big to fit through the birth canal. So we're born vulnerable. Extremely, catastrophically vulnerable. The only thing keeping human babies alive is the fact that adults feel compelled to take care of them. And the primary mechanism for triggering that compulsion is cuteness. When you look at a baby's face, specific areas of your brain light up. The nucleus accumbens, the same reward center that activates when you eat chocolate or win money, floods with dopamine. The medial orbitofrontal cortex, which processes pleasure and emotional responses, kicks into high gear. A 2009 study published in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that baby faces activate the brain's reward system in just 1/7 of a second. Faster than conscious thought. Your brain is responding to that baby before you even realize you're looking at one. This is the evolutionary hijack. Babies trigger pleasure responses that make you want to protect them, feed them, keep them safe. It's automatic. It's hardwired. But here's where it gets complicated. That response evolved primarily for your own offspring, or at minimum, offspring within your social group. Your tribe. Your family. Babies you have a genetic or social investment in protecting. A stranger's baby? That's different territory. Your brain is getting the cuteness signal, but the social context is all wrong. And that mismatch creates the weird feeling. Because when you see a stranger's baby, your brain isn't just processing cuteness. It's running a complex social calculation in the background. Anthropologists studying human evolution have found that for the vast majority of our species' history, we lived in small groups of 20 to 150 people. Everyone you encountered was either part of your group or a potential threat from another group. Babies within your group were communal resources. Everyone helped raise them. It was expected. Anthropologists call this alloparenting, where adults other than the biological parents participate in childcare. But a baby from outside your group? That was complicated. That baby represented another group's genetic investment. Helping that baby might mean competition for resources. In extreme cases throughout human history and across primate species, encounters between groups could result in infanticide. Your brain still carries the echoes of that ancient social calculation. When you see a stranger's baby today in a safe, modern grocery store, you're not consciously thinking about tribal competition or resource scarcity. But deep in your evolutionary psychology, there's a conflict. Part of your brain, baby. Cute. Protect. Another part of your brain, not my baby. Not my group. Uncertain social relationship with this baby's caregiver. Danger of social misstep. And that conflict manifests as the weird feeling. Psychologists studying this phenomenon have found that people respond differently to babies depending on perceived social connection. A study from the University of Delaware found that people showed stronger nurturing responses to babies who resembled them or who were identified as being from their own cultural or ethnic group. It's not that people were hostile to other babies. It's that the response was more complicated. More cautious. More weird. Add to this the modern social complication: you don't know the rules of engagement with a stranger's baby. If the baby smiles at you, should you smile back? If you smile too much, are you being creepy? If you don't smile, are you being rude? If the baby reaches for you, what do you do? If the parent notices you looking, do you compliment the baby? Ignore it? Make awkward small talk? There's no clear social script. And humans hate that. We're deeply social animals who rely on understanding social expectations. When those expectations are unclear, we feel uncomfortable. Hence, weird. Now let's talk about the really strange part. The part that sounds made up but is actually documented science. You know that feeling when you see something so cute you want to squeeze it? When you look at a baby or a puppy and you get this overwhelming urge to pinch those chubby cheeks or say things like, "I could just eat you up." That's called cute aggression. And it's a real psychological phenomenon. Researchers at Yale University studying this published findings in 2015 showing that people experiencing cute aggression aren't actually aggressive. They're experiencing an emotional response so strong that the brain activates the aggression motor system to help regulate it. Think of it like this: you're overwhelmed by cuteness. Your brain is flooding with dopamine and oxytocin. The pleasure response is so intense that your brain needs a counterbalance to bring you back to baseline. So it activates a low-level aggression response, not to harm the cute thing, but to regulate your own emotional state. That's why you get the urge to squeeze, to pinch gently, to make exaggerated expressions and say things in a high-pitched voice. But with a stranger's baby? You can't act on any of that. You can't squeeze a stranger's baby. You can't pinch its cheeks. You definitely can't say, "I'm gonna eat you up," to a baby you don't know without looking like you belong on a watch list. So you're stuck with this intense emotional and physical response that has no socially acceptable outlet. And that feels weird. Really, really weird. A 2018 study from the University of California, Riverside found that cute aggression is strongest in people who feel most overwhelmed by the cuteness. The cuter they found the baby, the more they wanted to squeeze it, and the more frustrated they felt when they couldn't. With your own baby or a family member's baby, you can act on that impulse in safe, appropriate ways. You can nuzzle, cuddle, play, make silly faces without social penalty. With a stranger's baby, you just stand there, internally screaming, "So cute," while externally doing absolutely nothing because any physical response would be wildly inappropriate. The emotional intensity with nowhere to go creates psychological pressure. And that pressure feels weird. There's another layer to this that gets into slightly creepy territory. Babies, especially very young babies, don't follow normal human social rules. And that triggers a low-level uncanny response in our brains. They stare. Not polite glancing, but intense, unblinking staring. In adult social interaction, that kind of staring is aggressive or threatening. We're taught from childhood not to stare. But babies don't know that rule, and they don't care. So when a stranger's baby locks eyes with you and just keeps staring, your social brain sends mixed signals. Part of you recognizes it's a baby and babies do that. But another part of you is experiencing something that would be deeply uncomfortable from an adult. They also don't respond predictably. Babies might smile at you for no reason. Or cry for no reason. Or laugh at something that isn't funny. Their emotional responses seem random because their brains are still developing the connections between stimulus and reaction. In adults, unpredictable emotional responses are signs of instability or danger. In babies, it's normal development. But your brain still flags it as unusual social interaction. Add to this the fact that babies look like humans but don't act like humans. They have human faces but lack human social conditioning. They're almost human, but not quite. That almost but not quite quality is the foundation of the uncanny valley effect, a concept from robotics that describes the discomfort people feel when something looks almost human but has subtle wrongness to it. Babies aren't fully in the uncanny valley. They're cute enough that the cuteness overrides most of the discomfort. But there's a hint of it, especially with very young infants whose movements are jerky and uncoordinated, whose eyes don't always track properly, whose expressions shift without obvious cause. When it's your own baby, you don't experience that uncanny element because you're bonded. You're interpreting every movement and expression through the lens of love and connection. When it's a stranger's baby, you don't have that emotional buffer. You're seeing the uncanny elements more clearly. And that contributes to the weird feeling. Here's something nobody warns you about: babies judge you. Or at least, it feels like they do. Research on infant cognition has shown that babies as young as 6 months old can make social evaluations. They prefer people who are helpful over people who are mean. They notice when adults interact positively or negatively with others. They're taking in social information and forming primitive preferences. A famous study from Yale's Infant Cognition Center showed that babies as young as 3 months old preferred puppets that helped other puppets over puppets that hindered them. Babies are born moralists. So when a stranger's baby stares at you, there's this irrational but persistent feeling: is this baby judging me? Does this baby think I'm a good person? Can this baby somehow sense that I forgot to call my mom back or that I lied about being busy when I just didn't want to go to that party? Obviously, the baby is not conducting a moral audit of your soul. But the feeling persists because babies are unpredictable, and we project meaning onto their expressions. If the baby smiles at you, you feel validated. The baby likes me. I must be okay. If the baby cries when looking at you, you feel obscurely rejected. Why doesn't the baby like me? What's wrong with me? It's completely irrational. The baby might be smiling because of gas. It might be crying because it's tired. But we interpret it personally because that's what humans do. We assign social meaning to interactions. And with a stranger's baby, you care what the baby thinks in this weird way you can't fully explain, because the baby's opinion seems pure and unjudged by social conditioning. That creates social pressure. You want the baby to like you, but you also don't want to try too hard because that seems weird, but you also don't want to seem cold because that also seems weird. There's no winning. Just weirdness. And then there's the parent. Because you're not just interacting with a baby. You're interacting with the baby in the presence of its fiercely protective caregiver. Parents are hypervigilant about their babies. Evolutionarily, they have to be. Human infants are vulnerable, and parental protective instincts are dialed to maximum. So when you, a stranger, show interest in their baby, parents are running their own calculations. Is this person safe? Are they being appropriate? Are they going to say something weird? Touch my baby without permission? Make a creepy comment? You can feel that evaluation happening. And it makes you self-conscious. If you smile at the baby and the parent doesn't smile back, you feel like you did something wrong. If you ignore the baby and the parent seems offended, you feel rude. If you compliment the baby too enthusiastically, you worry you seem fake. If you don't compliment it enough, you seem cold. There's also the phenomenon where parents expect you to think their baby is the cutest baby in the world. And maybe it's cute. Maybe it's very cute. But maybe you've seen cuter babies. Maybe this baby is kind of weird looking, if you're being honest. But you can't say that. You can't even think it too loudly, because your face might give it away. So you perform the socially required, cute baby, response while internally managing your actual emotional reaction, which might be more complicated. That performance, that gap between expected response and genuine feeling, creates cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance feels weird. For some people, strangers' babies trigger an entirely different kind of weird, the biological clock panic. If you're at a life stage where you're thinking about having kids or specifically trying not to think about having kids, seeing a baby can trigger a cascade of complicated emotions. That's cute. Do I want one of those? Am I supposed to want one of those? Everyone says I should want one. But do I actually? How would I know? That parent looks exhausted. But also happy. I don't know if I'm ready. Am I running out of time? Why is this baby making me have an existential crisis in the grocery store? For people who want kids but don't have them yet, strangers' babies can be painful reminders. For people who've decided not to have kids, strangers' babies can trigger social judgment. Am I supposed to look extra enthusiastic about this baby to prove I'm not a baby-hating monster? For people who've had kids and whose kids are grown, strangers' babies can trigger nostalgia or relief or both simultaneously. Every person brings their own reproductive context to the baby encounter. And all of that context colors the interaction in ways that have nothing to do with the baby itself. The baby is just existing. Being a baby. But you're projecting your entire life situation onto it. And that's a weird thing to do to a stranger's baby in a grocery store line. So yeah, strangers' babies make you feel weird. Not because there's anything wrong with you. Not because there's anything wrong with the baby. But because that interaction sits at the intersection of evolutionary biology, social psychology, emotional regulation, and about a dozen unspoken social rules that nobody actually taught you. Your brain is being hijacked by cuteness while simultaneously trying to navigate unclear social territory while managing intense emotions that have no appropriate outlet while being evaluated by both the baby and its parent while possibly confronting your own thoughts about parenthood and mortality. That's a lot. That's a lot to experience in the 3 seconds it takes to walk past someone's cart at the grocery store. The next time you lock eyes with a stranger's baby and feel that wash of complicated weird, just know, it's not you. It's 300,000 years of human evolution colliding with modern social anxiety. The baby doesn't care. The baby is just vibing. Being cute. Manipulating adult brains into keeping it alive. And you're just a human trying to navigate one of the strangest social interactions our species has invented, the stranger-baby encounter. So go ahead. Do the awkward wave. Make the weird face. Say, "Cute baby," even though your voice cracked. It's weird for everyone. That's just how it is. You're human. You've been dealing with other people's babies for 300,000 years. You still haven't figured out the right way to do it. And that's okay.